Welcome to Uncompromised, the podcast where we talk about regenerative agriculture, the economics of farming, and how we can uncompromise the industry and the food that we eat. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into the fourth principle of regenerative agriculture. And then later, we're going to talk about what happened on the farm this past week. So make sure to stick around for that. But before we do, consider liking this video and subscribing to this channel. We're on a mission to restore the soil on our Ohio Christmas tree farm by transitioning to fully regenerative farming practices. We're also bringing chestnuts back to Ohio. Is any of this possible? I don't really know, but if you want to find out, I think you're in the right place. So get subscribed, learn with us, and let's talk about the next generation of farmers in America. So with that, I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my dad, Scott Anderson, who's the owner of the farm. And this is Kevin, who is the partner in the business and a longtime family friend, and he was doing double duty. He was being the cameraman for the intro there. Today, we are going to talk about the fourth principle of regenerative agriculture. We've done videos, podcasts on the first three already. So if you are interested in those, go back and listen to that. It's in our backlog, pretty recent episodes. And what am I forgetting? So the first, I should probably recap what the first couple, what all the five principles are. So actually, do any of you want to, I kind of want to pick on Kevin just because I know that you have them memorized. Do you have them memorized, Kevin?
You're going to put me on the spot. Okay. So, variety of species, plant species.
So,
I know that's not being said correctly.
Yeah. Maximize diversity.
Maximize diversity.
Plant diversity.
Yep. Minimize soil disturbance.
Yep.
I already forgot the first one, but animal involvement. And no herbicides, pesticides, fungicides. What is the first one?
Well, the first one's the third one we did this past week. And
you did them a little out of order, but
did them
always
out of order,
do them out of order.
So ground cover.
Ground cover.
yeah.
That makes sense.
Maintain ground cover. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bus Kevin. Pow.
Yeah.
At least you didn't forget the third, the one that we were talking about.
The one that we're talking about today.
Which is integrating livestock. So I'll say, so out of the five principles, I think this one is the one that brings me the most enjoyment on a day-to-day basis, because the first three are primarily about soil, and depending on which direction you want to go, whether it's soil degradation or the health of soil, it doesn't happen overnight. It's something that happens on like a long time scale. And so livestock, I think, is more tangible, and it's an aspect of the farm that we not only interact with on a daily basis, but we get to witness the benefits that the livestock brings to the farm pretty quickly. And I think that can be rewarding, and that might be one thing I like about it. But that being said, it's also the one principle that is arguably the most labor intensive, because it requires like daily involvement.
I don't think there's much argument there. I would say it's by far the most involved, but I agree 100%.
Because you're doing it daily.
You're doing it daily, but not just daily, multiple times a day. But I agree that this one is probably the most dear to my heart, but it's because, like, fully agree that soil's important, maintaining cover, like all of those things are great. It's that one-on-one relationship with the animals and stuff that I really enjoy. And
they'll give you like direct feedback too. Like the chickens, for example, we run into issues with them, we know right away. And although it's a pain to try to figure out like what the issue is sometimes, but that's kind of, I don't know, it's more of a tangible aspect, one of the more interesting principles. So, I mean, there's all kinds of, like, even if you ignore the meat and the milk that you get from it, like the byproducts that they produce.
Right.
I mean, when they're still like probably the most valuable biological tool on the farm in terms of their involvement with the nutrient cycle and completing that animal, soil, plants ecosystem on the farm. Yeah. And we're going to get into all of that. So those are all things we're gonna talk about. So I think we can start off with the basics and just talk about what the problem is that we're trying to solve by integrating livestock into the farm or into regenerative agriculture in general. Like, what is the core problem?
Yeah, I think the core problem really is that in today's farming practices, we separate the animal from the land. So the livestock is separated from the land, and that creates a couple of problems for us. One is by separating, well, I guess, I should say that over the years, in terms of the history of man, if you will, in agriculture, livestock has always been on the farm. You always have the animal, the plant, and the soil working in symbiosis together. Well, the problem today is that for whatever reason, at the end of, or the middle to end of the 20th century, we decided for purposes of production and efficiency, maximizing those things, that we're going to separate the animal from the land.
Right.
And they take those animals and they put them into these feedlots, these concentrated animal feed operations, CAFOs is what they're called. And when you do that and you break that soil to plant to animal cycle, then now you've got to, in order to grow those animals, you have to transport feed to them instead of them feeding right off of the ground.
Yeah.
And then you're transporting the animals to the
You got to
Right.
move the animals away from the farm to these CAFOs. But then when you do that, you now don't have the animal putting nutrients back onto the land. So that becomes a waste stream that they've got to deal with.
Well, it's going onto the land in most places, but it's in such overabundance that it's not usable, absorbable, or beneficial to anybody or
Absolutely.
anything.
So then they have to manage it as a waste.
Right.
And then likewise, on the farm, you don't have the animal on the farm consuming the forage that was produced by the plants. You don't have nutrients that that plant provides going back into the soil. So then what does the farmer do? They supplement the nutrients with synthetic fertilizers.
Yep.
And now you also have an abundance or an overabundance of crop residue that you now have to do something with if you don't have the animals eating it. So now you create a waste stream there too. So all of those things added together creates a tremendous problem when you break that soil to plant to animal cycle. And we're going to be referencing that a lot
Right.
in this episode. That is so critically important to understand. But I think that's the problem.
Okay, so why did they separate it in the first place? Because I know that conventional farming at some point became incredibly specialized to the point where an operation will either only focus on just meat production, or they'll just focus on some sort of monocrop production, which is what I mean by specialized, like hyper specialized.
Yep.
And so, I mean, we said this before, but 99.7% of harvests, either like corn, soybeans, maybe wheat might fall into that, but they either go to ethanol production or it goes to feeding livestock, which is what you were saying. So if it goes to feeding livestock, so you're growing an entire monocrop of, let's say, corn, for example, you're then processing that and then delivering it to a whole nother operation to feed their livestock operation. And it's just hyper specialized, and everything has been segregated into individual divisions. So that's one aspect of why it was separated in the first place. Maybe that's the only aspect. I don't know if I'm missing anything.
It's specialized for a reason, though.
It's efficiency.
Exactly. Two
Okay.
things. Maximize production and maximize the efficiency of the operation so that you can get as much bang for your buck that you can out of the animal and out of the farm. Because in monoculture production out there on your farm, you've got a single crop growing, but you're growing it in horrendously large numbers. And so, you're trying to maximize that production as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the risk on both those sides of the house, let's talk about cattle or it can be sheep or whatever. When you do that and you specialize and you maximize production, and you can, you can tweak production on cattle in an incredible way. Well, what are you doing as a result of that? First of all, their quality of life is living right next to one another, standing in mud or feces or urine or all of that,
Yep.
and eating grain, which they're not supposed to be eating. They're ruminants. They have a rumen for a reason.
Right.
And so now you're feeding them this thing that is foreign to their digestive system so that they can maximize gaining weight. Well, what happens to the animal as a result of that? Not only is their quality of life bad, but they have to, because they're in confined spaces, they constantly have to medicate them and put all kinds of chemicals into their bodies to keep them from getting sick.
Healthy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and you can go on and on.
Right.
That's looking at it from the animal point of view. From the farm point of view, what happens is they're putting that synthetic fertilizer down. Well, now because it's a monoculture, they're going to be susceptible to insects there's nothing to prevent those bad insects from getting in there or bad diseases from getting in there. So you're using the fungicides and the herbicides and the pesticides and all kinds of sides.
Yeah.
And that makes your farm, your soil, unhealthy.
And brittle.
It's brittle. It has higher compaction rates. It's not able to handle water. Water infiltration reduces dramatically. You're not cycling nutrients back into the soil. So all of those things show that even on your farm, a broken soil to plant to animal cycle results in all kinds of problems with the land too.
Yeah.
Not just the animal, but the land.
Yeah. So by doing it that way, you're kind of you have all kinds of, you can get those short-term gains by
Yep.
making your operation more efficient, but you're doing that at the expense of the future essentially. And it's just funny. It's just so interesting how they're willing to take these short-term gains, and then those create problems, and then they're band-aids to the solutions to those problems are more chemicals, more antibiotics. Those cause other problems, but then they're able to profit off of solutions. And
Yep. And then you get government subsidies to help support them because they can't make it on their own.
Well, yeah, because you've minimized your revenue stream to one thing.
Right.
That thing that you're super specialized in.
Yep.
But you have crop failure, you just lost all your income for that year.
Absolutely.
Well, the producers are then they rely entirely on the chemical companies and essentially big ag in order to maintain their operations. So there's a lot of problems here.
There are a lot of problems. And it's not just the land that suffers in this. You have, like you were talking about, the welfare of the animals. And then you look at CAFOs for swine, pig, everything like that, where they're looking at how can we delete the pain gene from a pig, so that way they aren't biting each other, nipping at each other, and everything like this.
Right.
It's not concern over quality of life. It's how can we make more money, cram more livestock in here, and just keep cranking it out without any loss.
Yeah. Oh, and what I think is the terrible part in all of this is how the public is relatively ignorant of these kinds of things. Right. And I don't mean that in a negative way.
Yeah, I would say they're unaware, not ignorant. Because ignorant presumes that they're choosing to ignore the problem when they're just unaware of it in general.
Well, I think it applies both ways.
Yeah.
I think there are some that are aware enough and choose to ignore it.
Right.
Because of the conveniences that a supermarket offers, that if you don't have that relationship with your farmer. But more importantly than that is the quality of the food that you're getting.
Oh, 100%.
And that I am very concerned that the public is not nearly as aware as they need to of how compromised our food is today.
Yeah.
Because we have separated the animal from the farm and the soil.
Well, the thing that really concerns me there is that when people, consumers as a whole, are going to the supermarket and buying compromised food that is drained of their nutrients, they then become sick, which the solution to that is the incredibly complex healthcare system, which benefits from them being sick, and that perpetuates it bankrolls a whole nother industry, and that concerns me because it leaves the consumers kind of powerless in some ways unless they become educated on how they can uncompromise their food.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was driving to Columbus yesterday, and as I was on the highway, I passed by a semi truck that was jam-packed, like it was jam-packed with chickens. There were feathers flying out the back and everything, but I mean, they were like stacked on top of each other, no space whatsoever. And the siding on the whole trailer was open, and so they were getting hit with the highway winds and stuff. And I could just imagine how stressed those chickens are.
Yeah.
So,
oh my gosh.
And one of the things that like blows my mind about that, when you go to like a chicken CAFO, you have to decon when you go in, everything like that, so you don't introduce any foreign bacteria into the environment. But then you just throw them on a truck and say, well, there you go. Have some fresh air for the first time ever.
Wow. Oh.
A fire hose of fresh air.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really make
Oh,
any
hey,
sense.
Tom. Long time no see.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
So I know you defined it. You keep saying CAFOs. What is that again?
So that is a concentrated animal feed operation, is what it's an acronym, and that's what it stands for.
Okay.
So concentrated, all the animals are bunched together, and of course it's for animals, but it's feed. What's the idea is the first several months they may be out on a farm somewhere. They may be pasture raised, but most of the time they're not, but they could be pasture raised. But then what what the farmers are looking for is selling that cattle to these CAFOs where they can then feed them for, 6-8 months, however long they're there. And they can feed them such intense grain and hormones and all kinds of other things to maximize weight gain.
That's right.
So that they can take them and have them slaughtered and they have maximum weight. Mm-hmm. That's what's happening at those places.
So yeah, and that's specific to cattle. If we look at like a chicken CAFO who spends its life on no more room than a piece of paper.
Yeah,
Like, that's it. That's how confined they are.
Yeah.
and they're about the size of that piece of, if not larger.
Right. Especially when we're talking meat birds.
And that's all that they have. That's all the room that they have.
Yeah, when I saw them on the trailer, I think they had significantly less room than that.
Right, and you think about just that living situation, the stress, then you have the amount of feces that's just getting poured on down, and just absolutely horrendous conditions.
But it's okay because when they process them, that's why they soak them in bleach.
They don't do that anymore. They stopped doing that.
Oh,
I don't know if you know
Do
this,
they use
but
another?
that's some other chemical, I'm sure. I don't know which one, but they stopped doing that one.
They switched to a different chemical.
Yeah, and I don't think we're trying to gross out our
Sometimes
audience.
I feel like I am.
But I think we are trying to just make sure that, I think we adequately describe the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the obvious fact that they're separated from the farm. What's the consequence of that separation? And there's a lot of that.
Yes.
And we can just keep going on this one and peel this in many different layers.
Oh, yeah.
So what does it mean to integrate livestock, and how is that solving some of these problems? Like, why is it so important to a regenerative system?
Yeah.
So, well, we'll kind of can't concentrate more on what we're doing here because there's so many different ways you can go with this depending on what livestock you're integrating into your specific situation. So once again, knowing your context, right? That is a very big part of regenerative agriculture. So for us, integrating livestock into our field 7 here, and I mean, we can talk a little bit about our recent conversation about into the Christmas trees. But let's start with field 7 in cattle.
Well, we're trying to answer the question, why is integrated livestock important?
Okay. So big one is the kneading action of the hooves that we get as they're pushing in. Is that what we're looking for? No.
Well, no, I think what the importance, why is it important to us? Because when you break that cycle, then you don't have the activity, the things that we need. You don't have that nutrient cycle that's complete. You're not able to stimulate plant growth. You're not able to convert biomass, or in other words, the cellulose or the grass that's being grown out there, into something that humans can eat. So it's important for us to be able to do those kinds of things, and that's what integrating livestock does for us.
Okay.
We said what the problem was. What does it mean when we say we're going to integrate livestock? What does that mean?
Okay. I'm going to take a swing at it.
Okay.
That means essentially bringing livestock back onto the farm and then managing that livestock in a way that benefits the land. So through paddocks, through rotation of herds.
Yeah. So maybe I can say that a little bit more simply. What we're doing, or what integrating livestock actually means, it's an intentional use of grazing animals as a biological tool. To do what? As a biological tool to maximize the nutrient cycle, to be able to stimulate plant growth, to be able to create the kind of soil health that we're looking for, and to complete that natural relationship between the soil, the plant, and animal. That's what it is. That's what it means in my mind.
No,
Yeah, and so there's a couple of operative words there. Intentional.
Yep.
Very important. So intentionally managed. That gets to your point, that when we say intentionally managed, what do we mean? And a biological tool, what does that mean? Well, what it means in the context of integrating livestock is that we're going to employ something called rotational grazing as a way of mimicking what we had in the natural environment, where you had predation that causes your livestock to bunch. And when you have them bunch and you have predation out there, predators, they'll move that bunch. And so what that does is that allows those animals to not graze over and overgraze over a particular period too long. So in managing livestock, intentionally managing livestock on your farm, it's not just bringing chickens and cattle and sheep and pigs and putting them out on the farm.
right.
It's not that at all.
You're going to have all kinds of problems.
You're going to have all kinds of problems with that. What you do want to do, and this is something that Alan Savory, others I'm sure have developed this as well, but he's one of the leading thought leaders in this area, was he recognized that if you use portable fencing and rotational grazing simply means that I'm going to put animals in one place, and then I am going to move them to another place, and I'm going to move them to another place, and we're going to rotate that all the way through our farm, and then eventually they're going to come back to where they were the first time. It's rotational grazing.
Mimicking their natural herding cycles.
Right.
Mimicking predation, and how predation causes bunching, and how bunching and they move. So that's what we're going to do is we have in our field out there, we'll have about 16 paddocks. They're going to be small paddocks.
Real small.
About an acre. It is, and we're a small farm. When you have big farms, you can make it a little bit bigger, but you'll have more cattle out there too. But we're going to put them in that acre, and every day we're going to move them from this one to the next one. And what that does is that allows them to provide that urine and that manure, and through their saliva, they're consuming the plants, and through all of that, they're putting nutrients back into the soil.
And kneading and creating that seed to soil contact that we're looking for, and
Which is the hoof actions.
right,
That's
the hoof
going on.
action. Yeah, and I mean, everything when we talk about management like that, it's not, hey, we're going to do some acre paddocks and that's how it's going to be the entire year. And they're going to spend the exact same amount of time on the paddock each time.
Right.
No, it's
Well, and that
constant
paddock will
adjustments.
change.
Yeah,
The size will change depending on what your production is.
Right.
When you're having maximum growth out there on your pasture, then you don't need as much land. You don't need the size of the paddock can be smaller.
Shrink it up.
But as you get into midsummer, where now you don't have nearly the amount of grass growth, and I say grass, I'm talking about all of it, the forbs and the brassicas and the legumes. You don't have all that going. You need to broaden, you need to widen out that paddock size.
It's interesting how some animals can work together. Like, for example, how we plan on following the herds of cattle with the chickens because they have specific jobs that complement each other.
Yeah.
With that being said, what are some of the biggest benefits to this type of integration? I know we've already talked about them, but maybe if we just list them off a little bit in a concise manner.
Sure.
I would say I'm not great at concise.
Oh, okay.
I'm more of a rambler.
Okay.
So, benefits being your manure urine getting onto the soil.
So what's that doing?
That is providing nutrients to the soil.
So it's cycling nutrients.
Yep.
So that's one key benefit, cycling nutrients.
Well, actually, we'll start at the mouth because we're taking those brassicas and then the grass. The brassicas are grass. Jeez.
Yeah. No, they're not grass. You have your grasses, your brassicas, forbs, and legumes.
Anyways, that's all going in the mouth. The saliva's getting on there, breaking everything up that we can't break up and turn into any kind of nutrients ourselves. Only ruminants can do that. So they do that, and then they put all that good nutrients back onto the soil.
Right.
All right.
So nutrient cycling is one big one.
Concise.
Yeah. Okay. How about if I list them and you talk about it? Stimulate plant growth. How does cattle stimulate, or any livestock stimulate plant growth?
So, and each livestock has their own preferred salad, per se, but they stimulate it by taking those bites, and that immediately sends that signal down through the root system to the plant, saying, "Hey, I need to grow. Let's grow."
Yeah. So they put more roots out.
Yep.
And then that allows them to put more shoots out.
Yep.
And so you have more exudates, root exudates going into the soil.
Yep.
Sugars, proteins, microbes, or compounds rather, all going into the soil. That's
Also,
a
to
wonderful
add to
thing.
that, they have certain species of plants will have a seed that will get consumed by, let's say, a cow or a chicken, and it's intended to pass through their digestive system, and it'll get excreted somewhere else, and that's a form of the plants replicating itself and using animals to, further
spread their seed.
Yes, further the species.
So another one is you improve the soil health. So how's it improving the soil health?
Animal integration, nutrients back into the soil, like we talked about. So your manure, urine, back into the soil, but also through the kneading action.
Yeah. So in addition to that, you're building soil aggregation. So that is the structure. So when you're putting manure and urine, those kinds of things into the soil, you're creating an ecosystem in that soil that can thrive. So you got better soil aggregation. You've got more, because of the stimulated plants, you have more root exudates that are going in. You've got the cow patties there that when broken down, they have all that bacteria from the ruminant, wonderful bacteria that then with rain and as it's being spread out, that allows that to get into the soil. That's critical because that bacteria, what does that bacteria do? What is it that a cow does? In its ruminant, it's able to break down cellulose.
Yeah.
So primarily from grasses, but other plants as well. That bacteria breaks that stuff down. Well, that goes into the soil. And so what's happening is when that bacteria goes down in the soil, it is working outside of the rumen now at this point, but it's also doing what it's intended to do. It's starting to break down that mat of cover crop that's sitting on the top of the soil, starting to break that down. See, and then of course the urine is the nitrogen and other chemicals that go right straight back into the soil. But those are things that help improve the soil health. You get more roots, you get greater root channels. Therefore, when it rains, you have places for the water to go. It's more spongy. And so all of that together creates an ecosystem that makes the soil even healthier.
Right.
Real quick, if you're a coffee drinker and you're looking for a solid brand that supports regenerative farmers, check out 7 Weeks Coffee. It's what we use on our coffee and chestnut hut because they're faith-based, they have a great mission, and their Dominican blend is sourced from regenerative farms. They do not sponsor us, but because we use them in our coffee hut, we have an affiliate link that we can share with you guys. So if you use our discount code ADVENT, you'll get 10% off of your order, or use the link that's in the description below. It's a great way to support our channel and our farm. You get a discount on great coffee, and then we of course get a kickback, so it's a win-win.
We're also, so those cow patties are bringing in more beneficial and non-beneficial insects.
Yep.
But you're creating that environment, right?
Right.
And that's, we're just building and throwing more things in there that create a healthier, better environment.
Yeah, so another major benefit is when you put livestock back onto your farm, you're creating a revenue stream for your farm that had been separated before.
Absolutely.
That's very important, to bring that, for us anyway. We're really looking at that revenue stream as some of the primary ways that we're going to be able to grow and prosper here on our farm. So that's a big deal.
Yeah, and we're able to use the same land for multiple income sources.
That's
so
right.
The land, the same 17 acres. It's only 17 acres, which isn't a lot, but we're able to do so much with it because not only are we growing the chestnuts, which is a revenue source, we're also able to have rotational grazing for cattle out there, which is going to be, their meat is going to be another revenue source, and then preceded by chickens, which is another one.
Yeah.
So lots of, and when I say chickens, it's really two revenue sources because of the eggs and then also the poultry.
Right. Yeah, the meat. Yeah.
So the density of profitability on an acre increases when, if you there's some intentionality behind that too, but if you play your cards right, you can see a lot of wins there.
So.
Yeah, and then your the ecology of your farm improves. So that those relationships between the farmer and the animal, the farmer and the plants, the farmer and the soil, are all those kinds of things. As that soil ecosystem builds itself, then that feeds the plants, which then feeds the animals, which then feeds us. Mm-hmm. So you've got a wonderful thing going on there, which means the resilience of your farm improves as well. So all of those taken together are some pretty significant benefits to why you want to integrate livestock into your farm.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. And back to what I said at the beginning, how conventional farming will often indulge in short-term gains in order to, take from the future, if you will. But if you're able to, work with the land and integrate livestock in this way, you're building a resilient land for future generations to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're really thinking about it from a long-term perspective, which is another aspect that I find is interesting.
Well, I wanted to get back to a comment that Kevin made, because I think it's an important one for us to discuss for a few moments. And that's this whole idea, you brought it up last week as well, but I think we can expand on a little bit, is this question of hoof action. And is that a good thing? Is that a good thing for your farm to have livestock out there that's, through their hoof action, what are they doing?
Well, it can be.
Can be. That's right. How can it not be good?
Before you answer the question, I'm thinking some of the bad things about hoof action, which might be that you're tearing up whatever's growing on that land, their hooves are turning it into mud, basically. Or maybe the other thing that I might be thinking of is that one of our principles is to kind of keep the soil undisturbed,
Minimize
and
soil disturbance.
and minimize heavy equipment, heavy machinery from compacting the soil. So wouldn't hoof action further compact that soil? That's kind of like maybe that's some of the misconception there. So is any of that true?
Yeah, so go ahead, Kevin, because I think you're going to address that.
Right. So, I mean, yes. Lost my train of thought.
Okay, so hoof action, it can be beneficial if it's managed correctly.
Right.
If it's not managed correctly, things like what you just talked about occur.
Yeah,
What are some examples?
So you get your feedlot, your CAFO situation where you can. So when you over intensify that, you can essentially create an atmosphere where you're going to have desertification, where you can't grow plants, you can't grow things that a ruminant can break down.
Well, let me help you a little bit here in terms of answering Kyle's question. How can hoof actions be bad? If you don't manage it correctly, you can have too many animals around a watering hole. So too many animals confined in one space and they're not moved around, and this can happen on a farm. It can happen on our farm. If we don't manage it correctly, then we can have hoof action that ends up trampling, causes compaction because you've got too many animals in one place for too long. That's how you can have a bad situation with hoof action. If you manage your animals through rotational grazing, what you are doing is you're spreading those animals out over that small paddock. They're bunched, but they're not over, you don't have so many in there that you're causing the kinds of negative hoof actions that can occur. And you're moving them frequently enough that you're not going to create a mud pile in those areas. What you are going to do is those animals will evenly trample over that paddock space. And as long as you're moving them on a daily basis, or whatever the frequency is that you decide that you want to use, using rotational principles, then what you're going to get is the benefit of their hoofs. Now, when you look at the hoof of, and I'll talk about cattle at this point. They got a two-pronged hoof, and it has a pointed front to it that's turned in. So as they walk, they're doing this bit of action like this, which is causing the upper surface. I call it duff. It can be whatever decomposing leaves that we talked about last week, or whatever the case may be. It's putting a bit of an indentation in that. Well, what that's doing is that's creating an opportunity for for seed to contact soil. And that's a wonderful benefit, because what that does is that allows more growth, not less growth. See, so it's critical to manage hoof action in such a way that you get the benefits, but not in such a way that they overextend their stay and they create way too many problems.
So you don't want too much hoof action, you don't want too little hoof action. You want kind of just a nice balance.
Yeah. There is a balance there.
And so timing of your rotations is essential to keeping that balance.
That's right.
That's right. What about like water sources? So that was your first thing that you mentioned. So if we have a single water source that they all go to, how do we solve that problem?
Yeah. So
You got to move it.
yeah, you either have to move the water, or you have to, you can do it a couple of different ways. Like, for example, if you have maybe a large square field, and you decide to put a water source right in the middle of that field, then you can make paddocks that are pie-shaped, going all the way around, and every one of them allow you to hook up to that water spot right in the middle. The problem with that, if you don't create that in such a way that you minimize the potential of bad hoof action going on, you're going to have compaction, mud, all that kind of good stuff. Well, the way you do that, one of the ways, many, many different ways you can do that, is have it large enough, put a cement pad, put the water on top of the pad, and put rock all the way around it. So that when the animal do come frequently to that same water station, now remember, it's a pie shape, so the next paddock they're going to be over a little bit. They still can access the water, but they're over a little bit. And as you go around, you're going all the way around that. But if you prepare the site well, you can minimize any mud accumulation and the negative effects of hoof action.
So
That's one way you can do it.
Yeah.
Moving the water is another way you can do it.
wouldn't you, so you're, because it's a pie shape, even if, like if it's a hub of a wheel, right? So even if you have your pie shape here, you're still going to get extra concentration here because of the pie shape,
Yeah,
because you have a natural funneling of hoofs.
yeah, you could. You could. The only reason I would do a pie shape in a field as I'm describing is because I have a single water source.
Right.
And it's not movable.
Right.
If that's your situation, then that is a way of making it work. But now you have to think about what are the potential negative consequences of that. We're hoping to be able to move our water.
Right.
Yeah, so
around.
what is our solution to this
Yeah,
problem?
don't have a permanent solution yet to it. There's all kinds of options. But one thing is moving. Another thing that we were talking about doing is having, in our 17 acres, it's a rectangular shaped
Right.
area. And we were, I'm thinking of putting three
Water points.
3 water points. Like if this is it here, one here, one here, and one here. And then you can block them off and have squares and allow the water source to be there. Another option is we just run a pipeline all the way down that has access to water, and we can pull water off of that pipeline using a mobile system. Yeah, so I mean, we're not quite there yet,
Right.
but still thinking through that one. What's the best approach for us to use?
So, yeah, I mean, we're going to run our water out next year.
Yeah, something like that, right?
I don't think, I like the idea of being flexible until we find what works well for us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully that's going back to the hoof action thing. That answers that question a little bit for you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that cycle, the soil. Let's talk that for a minute to help our audience understand what that cycle is. And it starts, and I think the way I would describe it is it starts with the sun. So the sun is providing the energy through photosynthesis that the plants need to be able to thrive. And so those plants are taking in the sun, energy from the sun, they're taking in carbon dioxide, and they're producing the root exudates that we talked about a couple of episodes ago. That root exudate is wonderful because that's going to be feeding that ecosystem.
Right.
But in addition, that plant is growing, and that plant is going to feed the animal.
Through cellulose.
Yeah. So the animal, the ruminants, so our cattle and other kinds of livestock, are going to consume those plants, and by doing that, they're going to provide an ability to break that cellulose down, so that they can convert that into something that humans can actually eat, meat, dairy, that kind of thing. But then what they're also going to do is they're going to urinate. They're going to defecate. They're going to, through their saliva, they're putting bacteria back onto the ground. They're putting nutrients back into the ground. And then the chickens are going to come back behind, and they're going to break all that up, allow the bacteria and other good stuff that's in the cow patties down into the ground, which the bacteria and fungi and microbes and all kinds of living organisms that are on there need to survive. So there's that cycle. And then just add the human element to it, because we enjoy the good food that's being produced as a result. But that cycle is important to understand, because when you take the animal out of that cycle,
It's a dead
just
cycle.
like we said, you don't have a cycle.
Yeah.
And that's what we're suffering with. That's going back to the problem question that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, and then when you incorporate that livestock into that cycle, that livestock is doing what it's fundamentally designed to do in the first place.
That's right.
Which means it's not only going to be happier, less stressed, but it's also going to be a healthier animal.
Yep.
And that's why you don't really need things like antibiotics and all this stuff, because
Exactly.
nature, if it's healthy, it'll take care of itself. going back to that original bankroll of problems, this kind of eliminates a lot of that stuff in the same way.
Right.
So speaking of the individual jobs of livestock, there are lots of different jobs that can be done through different animals. So can we go through that list and talk about what each animal? So The Marvelous Pigness of Pigs is one of the first books I read by Joel Salatin, and I love that book because it, for a lot of reasons, but one reason is it did a good job of communicating that each animal is designed to do a purpose. It has a job, a function that it really wants to do, kind of like humans, I guess. Yeah, so there's, we can start with chickens, I guess. So chickens, what is some of the roles, the functionality of a chicken?
In our atmosphere, in our farm, cleaning up around the Christmas trees, getting all the pests and insects and all the good stuff there, scratching out all the weeds underneath the Christmas trees. Once they get integrated into field 7, they'll be scratching out the cow patties, eating the fly larva before it becomes an issue for the cattle. And it just, once it's like those cleaner fish that clean all the algae in the fish tank.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what the chicken does. It goes and it cleans up all the yucky stuff
That's actually
for everybody else.
That's a pretty good analogy.
Thanks. I do all right sometimes.
So how are we going to? We're going to have the chickens follow the cows. How are we going to do that? And then what will be the result of that?
So we will be doing that primarily through Joel Salatin style chicken tractors, and it'll be our meat birds that are going to be doing that. And which is great because you now have chickens that have been fed through fly larvae and all the other good stuff.
All the
that's
good proteins.
Good for them,
all
yeah.
the good proteins. So that the nutrient density of that chicken meat, I can't wait for.
I wish there was a way that we could measure that. I mean, I know we don't have the ability to do that, but it would be so cool to see
Yeah. And
see
it's-
that.
Yeah. The chicken's great. As for our laying hens, though, I see them staying in our Christmas trees, but they will have the benefit, hopefully, of sheep.
Yeah.
Can you explain so what do we do with the laying hens and the Christmas tree fields? Like, how does that operation work? And then how does that apply to what the chickens do around the trees?
So our chickens, they're in an egg mobile, so a portable hen house, essentially. And then they're fenced in with an electric Ned fencing from Premier One. And they are rotationally grazing through the Christmas trees, eating the pests and the insects and all the goodness there, scratching the weeds out.
So they'll get right up underneath each individual tree within their perimeter, and then they will scratch and
find all
remove
the
some of the weeds
goodness.
around the bottom of it, and then eat all the bugs, which is really surprisingly efficient.
It still surprises me when you go look at the trunk of that tree, and it'll have, essentially, they remove all the weeds and vegetation underneath there where they're getting all the good grubs
It's like a
and
foot
bugs
radius
and-
around the trunk.
Yeah.
So the roles of a hen is actually different from the roles of a broiler, a male bird, which is interesting, which is why we have two different contraptions. So one is the tractor, because the broilers prefer, believe it or not, they prefer to be more confined.
Right.
In that, and confined is a strong word, but they prefer to be more contained in a protective area versus a hen, which is
A roamer.
yeah, they roam. They prefer to be out in the open, which is why we have a portable coop that they sleep in at night for predation purposes. But then during the day, they roam around, and we have electric fencing, so they can roam around over a large area of Christmas trees. And then in that patch of trees, they'll go around to each tree and dig around it and do their job.
Yeah.
That's chickens.
Yeah, that's chickens. What about cattle?
I guess we don't have cows yet. Maybe 2 years out. They will benefit us and the land through maintaining Field 7, really.
We're going to do all the things that we were talking about
Right.
here in terms of improving soil health and helping the plants to grow better and returning a nutrient cycle. But is that what you're asking, or are you wanting to know?
The jobs of a livestock. So a job of a cattle, I think, would be that they really.
Well, I think I see two jobs for them. Number one, they're going to help improve the health of the soil. So that's for sure, number one. Number two is they're going to convert that stuff that we can't eat, the grasses and all that kind of good stuff, into meat and dairy.
Yeah, so
so those are the two things.
I was going to say their job is to eat grass. They like to just eat grass and then digest it, and that's pretty much what they enjoy doing.
Right, but for our purposes, the end game there is that we're able to then enjoy that meat and dairy, whatever we're willing to go after there. We're able to use that and benefit from that and use that as a revenue source. Right. But yeah, those are the jobs that they're going to be doing for us.
And then sheep, if we do sheep, which...
Yeah, so we're planning on doing sheep, perhaps even as soon as this coming spring.
Right.
What are they going to do for us? Well, they're doing the same thing in terms of helping the soil. They're going to do all that. But what they're going to do in addition to that is they're going to open up for us the ability to use our entire farm instead of just the 17 acres that are back there. Because our Christmas tree operation is also regenerative.
Right.
The only difference is that we aren't maximizing the diversity of plants that are out there. The trees, they're different trees, and there's all kinds of grass and weeds and stuff that's out there as well. So we're going to put sheep out there, and Shropshire in particular is the kind of sheep that doesn't chew on the plants, it doesn't chew on the trees,
right?
Which is really cool. Which is going to allow us to then take advantage of the integrating livestock into your operation, and we'll gain all the benefit of that and expanding our operation from 17 acres to the total 38 acres of land. We've got a total of 48 acres of land, but service roads, pasture back here, our house proper, all that stuff won't be included. But that's a good...
The vast majority of it will now benefit from this principle that we've been talking about the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've been struggling with trying to figure out, especially out front here, how are we going to integrate livestock?
Right.
And it's been a huge struggle.
Yep.
And
so is sheep sounds like it's very similar to a cow, where they're foragers. They they want to eat the grass, and then they'll have the hoof action, obviously, but they're smaller, so size is a kind of a difference. And then also, like you said, that particular variety of sheep it sounds like they focus more on grass that's low to the ground rather than trees and branches and stuff which are higher up.
So we have a couple of benefits from Shropshire. A couple benefits. Number one is they have excellent meat. So their meat quality is quite good. As I've read, I'm not an expert.
We'll have to find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. But and I've looked at a lot of stuff on this. Excellent meat quality, supposedly. But the other thing is that they're readily available in Ohio. There's lots of Shropshire sheep in Ohio.
I did not know that.
Yeah. It's a very prevalent. It's a very prevalent breed. So I think that's going to be encouraging from getting in contact with people who know how to do this kind of thing, know how to raise those particular animals. And so that also means that we have options for being able to purchase them, getting the kind of quality that we're looking for initially when we bring them on board. Now, all of that, the learning curve is super steep.
Yeah.
We got a lot to do there. But how we're going to incorporate livestock onto our farm, that's another way that we're going to do that.
So since there's so many similarities to cattle, are we going to essentially have the same, what?
Similar, but very not. Like when we talk temperament, behavior, likes, and like...
But like the functionality of it, I'm assuming that we're going to have the chickens precede the the sheep when we put them out there on the Christmas trees farm, just like we would out in field 7?
The best we can. I think that's something we're going to have to play with.
Did you say proceed?
Well,
Pre-seed?
Not
pre-seed, yeah. What did,
No,
they'll
we're
come
gonna,
after
They're
the
going to
sheep.
come after, not before.
the sheep will come after the chickens?
No.
No, chickens are after the sheep. Yeah, and a couple of days after the sheep.
Okay, I meant to say that the chickens will precede the sheep.
No,
The sheep will proceed.
the sheep will precede
The
the chickens.
Okay.
So will occur before the chickens are out there. So the chickens will follow them, but you don't want them to follow immediately because you need it to break down a little bit. So it'll be a couple days behind.
Right. The best we can. Remember, like when we talk about the eggmobile specifically, because we are essentially a week before we move forward, those sheep will be well on their way through the farm before.
Yeah, and we'll figure out. We don't have all
Yeah.
that stuff figured out at this point.
But will they be contained by the electric fence?
Yes.
A different
Yes.
one.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
Yeah,
But
They will. We'll have
That'd be cool if you could put it together.
paddocks that have electric fence around them, so that we can keep them confined.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about a pig? Because we've talked about pigs as well. We were
Yeah,
interested
Kevin
in
and I were
them.
talking about this just the other day. So what pigs need that we don't have is usually woodland area of some sort, because their skin is actually very, very sensitive to direct sunlight.
Yeah.
And we don't have woods, number one. And number two, they're a rooting animal. With their snouts, they root and they dig up the ground. And that's not what we want. So for
But
those
how can
two
that be
reasons alone.
beneficial in this way, when it comes to these principles?
Yeah, well, how it can be beneficial is the seed to soil contact. They're going to really help in that area.
Yeah.
So through the rooting process, they really can help in that area.
So, well, it would be so on the north side of field 7, where we have that nice thick wooded area that's not ours.
That's what you need.
That's what you need.
That's what you
And
need, yeah.
If we had that area, it could be a conversation,
Right.
but we don't have that, and all the land that is potentially for sale around us is all monocrop farmland.
Yeah, so we don't have any wood lots that's even
Right.
available to us.
Yeah, I'm actually just thinking, because we don't have pigs at all and we're not planning on getting them, but just in general, we went to a farm a couple years ago, I think, that had pigs on the farm, and I would imagine that a big benefit would be that they help, because a pig likes to be covered in mud to protect them from the sun, so they roll around in mud and they do a lot of damage in that way, which helps probably break down and decompose that layer in forests and stuff,
Yeah.
which is an example of a pig doing what it likes to do and it having a function within the cycle.
Right. Right.
Oh yeah, pigs do really good at what they do.
What do they eat primarily? Or is it about the same,
Well, they'll
Everything.
pretty much everything?
They'll eat
yeah?
most anything. Yeah.
Almost anything, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is another function, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But for our farm, in terms of what are we going to do? How are we going to take this principle and apply it here? You know, we've talked already about the cover crops and the perennial pastures and that kind of thing. But we are talking about sheep next year. We're talking about cattle the year after that. And so I wanted to share something with you guys as a thought. Going through the preparation for this particular one, it made me realize when integrating livestock into your farm, how critical it is that they help to incorporate seed to soil contact to germinate seed that's out there on the pasture.
Right.
And one of the things I brought up not have been the last time we spoke on the maximizing or maintaining ground cover, was this whole idea of integrating livestock allows you through hoof action to integrate seed better.
Right.
So I brought up the point that when we did our perennial pasture this year in April, you know, I've not been satisfied with the way the seed is taken. And so it made me started to think, well, wait a minute. The reason is because we don't have good soil to seed contact or seed to soil contact. And if we had animals out there, that would help solve that problem.
Right. We've taken animals out of the cycle.
Yeah, they're not there.
They're not there to do that crucial.
So it's causing me to rethink when we want to put animals out there. And I'm thinking we ought to do it sooner than later and let them help us fix our perennial pasture rather than wait until we have a perfect perennial pasture and then put them out there.
Which we won't. Even at 2 years from now, we still won't have a perfect pasture for them.
Right.
Why wouldn't we have a perfect pasture in 2 years?
Well, because we're not getting the kind of germination that we need because we have such a nice layer of cover crop residue on the top.
What would chickens help with that, you think, if we had a rotation of chickens out there?
Oh, I think they could help.
They could help.
Because they scratch. And so I think they could help. But I think the real thing that would really help is hoof action. And if we had that hoof action out there, you know, they're doing exactly what we're saying right here in terms of some of the benefits that you get from them. We ought to take advantage of that.
Yeah. So to play devil's advocate, the reason we don't want to do that is because we're trying to restore that land and we want it, you know, time and rest period is a big part of that, which is what we're going through right now.
Yep.
So we might, I mean, we would lose a little bit of that if we added cattle out there.
We could. And the other thing is, you know, do we have the resources to be able to do it? And we got to recognize that too.
Right. We don't have our water line in yet.
So we're not quite ready, but at least the point that would help solve a problem that we do have right now, it would be great to be able to do that. Yeah. I think, Kyle, you're making a great point. You also, with the fact that the water is not out there yet, we got a little distance to go yet before we're ready to bring them in.
Right. And I think even if you doubled the germination that we currently have out there, I don't think it's going to be at the standard that you want it to be at.
Well, I don't know. It's looking pretty. You know, I say that on the one hand that we're not getting the.
It looks a lot better than it did this spring.
It looks a whole lot better. It looks pretty delicious to me.
Right. You've been spending a lot of time out there.
Yeah, I have.
It had a very delayed start, though.
It did have a delayed start.
And I think some of us trimming down some of that hairy vetch and stuff like that and allowing the seed to actually maybe make some contact helped a lot.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think it's a good theory. I think I understand, I think we all understand the idea, the problem that we're trying to solve with that. I would still want to, we get our cover crop, our seed source is Green Cover is their name, I think.
Yeah, Green Cover.
They are very helpful in this type of information, and I would definitely want to consult with them first because they understand and they've worked with countless other farms on this restoration phase, and I'm sure they know more about the problem that we're facing when it comes to seed to soil contact, and maybe they might have some advice that we would want to hear before we make a decision like that.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a lot more to talk about there, but I think we could put livestock out there sooner than 2 years from now.
Yeah, what would you said soon, so what is soon? What would that be? Because we were initially planning for 2028 spring.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe sometime next year, but it'd have to be after we get the water in. And so I think you really need to start in the early spring. So it really wouldn't make any sense to do anything earlier than 2028.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if we had the infrastructure in place, I think we could.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I think the potential benefit there to having integrated livestock on the land would jumpstart the next phase of that regeneration.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas right now we're kind of gradual, and then because you've talked about it before, once you add livestock on there, you're just you're hitting that next incline pretty hard.
So what do you guys think is the biggest takeaway that we can have from integrating livestock into our farm? What's the big takeaway we want our audience to know?
Well, for me, I think you want to have like a strategy and a plan in place, because you don't want to just throw livestock out there and then, just let them do their thing. You got to have intentionality behind it and understand that there's a pattern and a process that you have to do. So for example, you have to really figure out your rotational grazing schedule and figure out the timeline between rotations and make sure you stick to that, and then measure things as best you can so that you can add adjustments if you need to. So there is a methodology behind the madness, and learning that beforehand and setting yourself up for success is kind of
That's a good takeaway for sure. It really is. What do you think, Kevin?
So I think for me, it is, we'll go back to this wheel cycle thing. When you have all 5 pieces to this pie of regenerative agriculture.
All 5 pieces, you mean the principles?
Yep, the pieces of the pie, the principles of this thing, right? You can't pick and choose which principle you want to practice in order to call this a pie.
Yeah,
right?
which a lot of people do.
Right.
Or in other words, when you say pie, in order to
have a full
consider a regenerative farm, regenerating the soil, regenerating the farm, regenerating
Absolutely.
the ecology, the whole thing.
You can't just pick and choose which one of these 5
you got to have all
principles.
5.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
And that's one of the biggest takeaways to this. Like, you can go out and you can plant things and put things and do all these things, but until you have that piece of the pie, that principle,
all 5 principles working
together
in combination together with one another, that's what makes all of this work.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that's,
I agree. I think that's a great one.
Right. And I think, like, we see it with chickens every single day out here.
Yeah.
As soon as you move that tractor forward, that egg mobile forward, you can tell exactly where it was 4 or 5 days later.
Oh yeah.
Because the vibrance of the greenness in that vegetation is just pops.
Right. Yeah. You're right. You're right.
So that integration is so vital to making sure that you are truly on that path to regenerating the soil.
Yeah. Well, I think that those are both good, excellent points. I think for me, the biggest takeaway from this whole discussion is this whole principle of soil to plant to animal, that cycle, that nutrient cycle, and how you take any one of those. If you have unhealthy soil, then your plant's not going to do well and your animal's not going to do it, even if you have them all on the same location. So it's when you break that cycle, you really break the process and prevent us from having good, nutritious food.
Yeah.
So the way I like to think about it is healthy soil yields healthy plants, which yields healthy animals, which yields healthy people. And when you combine all that together, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to uncompromise our food so that we can feed nutritionally dense products, make those available to our customers. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, for sure. And not to beat a dead horse, but when we utilize the functionality and the job of all these different types of livestock appropriately, you're also reducing your input costs, and you're not relying on machinery as much, or you're saving on diesel costs, and you're not relying on pharmaceutical crutches, things like that. So there are those are another set of advantages that I don't think we really touched on, but I just wanted to mention that real quick.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, because when we talk about sheep integration out here and everything like that, that's a lot less time that you and Miss Trudy are out there mowing and everything like that. So now you have a time advantage.
Which that would be interesting to see the difference there.
I know.
Yeah. I'm very interested in that.
So many things I'm interested about in this.
All right.
So,
and again, this is another example of how we're, this principle is helping us work with nature and not against it. Which is important to know. All right, well, let's move on and talk about this past week on the farm. Talk about what we've been doing since the last episode. Who wants to get started?
I mean, mine's short.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead then? Go ahead.
I finally wrapped up the cleanup around the fence line and getting rid of most of, as much as I can, the invasive honeysuckle. Just opening up that tree line and that trail. And
so you're going around the perimeter of
Yeah.
of the farm, essentially.
I don't even know how far it is and how wide it is.
So you did
It's-
about 1,000 feet on the south side of the farm, probably a little over 1,000 feet on the south side, and then on the west side about 600 feet.
Okay.
So I mean, you did. We're talking a lot of work here.
Yeah.
That was a lot of work.
It's fairly wide. Probably 30, 40 feet wide.
Oh yeah. Times all of that. So it's a lot of area that you had to cover. So good for you. That was a major level of effort for sure. So anything else?
From mine, that's basically that and chickens.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? Is it cleanup, like cleaning up all the stuff you cut out of it?
Some cleanup that has to be done out there, and then
We got some burn piles we're gonna have to burn down. We're gonna have to pick up some piles out there in field 7 because he didn't have any place to put as he pulled that stuff up. He had no place to put it, so he plopped it over the fence in the field 5 or in the field 7.
Yeah.
So I can't mow the perimeter. I mow the perimeter to keep fence nice and clean.
Yeah.
And so we just got to clean up a little bit of that.
Right. So luckily that's fairly minimal.
Yeah, that did not look that bad.
No.
You know, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 piles. And
Yeah.
they didn't look that bad. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm assuming we're gonna chip it and then
Not
burn the
that.
rest?
Yeah, probably not that. Yeah.
There's no part of it that you can chip?
Well,
Well, there is probably parts we can chip, but
it's so tangled with old farm fence and
Right.
other
That's
what-
just
yeah.
trash and garbage.
But you don't intend to
right.
chip any of it?
Yeah, not at this point.
Um,
Okay, well, so the big thing on my side of the house was we had a team from Michigan come and shear our trees this week. So every year, the third week in July, Shea Powers and his team of professional shearers, they use knives, 4-foot long knives,
machetes.
and they're not machetes, they're knives, they're literal knives, but the blades are this long on it. But they came out and they used 2, so they came out and they did all 15,000 of our trees
2.5 days.
in 2.5 days.
That's insane.
Yeah, actually, not even 2.5 days, 2 days.
That was their fastest time?
Yeah, knocked it out. Did a wonderful job too. So they're looking beautiful. They are now shaped for Christmas. So
It's just crazy.
yeah, well, and people may not realize that the Christmas trees, like most other trees, they have a really short growing season, and it's usually May time frame through June, and then they shut down, and they're what we call harden off at this point, and they're becoming woody instead of being a real easy to cut, not woody, new growth. They start hardening off in preparation for winter. And that's where they are right now. That's what they're doing right now. So we're not getting any more growth on our trees. And most all trees are not producing much growth anymore either, because we're well past that growth spurt time. So that was one big thing that I did. A couple of waterings out there for the chestnuts. So we did one on Tuesday, did one today. Kevin's got to finish that up.
Yep, that's my night.
Yep. So we've got that. And then mowing, I mowed all of our fence line, and I think we have I've done the math on this for about 2.5 miles of fence line that needs to be mowed on both sides of the fence. So that got all done, and then mowing service roads. So gosh, I haven't figured that one out, how many miles of service roads we have. But we have a lot of service roads. And so I'd probably say about 4 miles of service roads total, something like that. We got a lot. And so all that got done as well this week. So those are good things. So productive from that point of view.
Cool.
Yep.
Anything else?
Nope. I think that captures it.
Yeah, I mean, Coffee Hut.
Yep.
Got an event tomorrow.
Yep.
Starting a new relationship in the community, which is nice. And
Yeah, it's all good.
yeah.
All right, well, that wraps it up for today's episode. Check back with us next week, and if you've made it this far, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate it. and we'll see you guys next week.